Got him now.
Benny and Kenny and what's her name?
Benny working.
They got water.
I'd like to call the order of the East Ascension Drainage meeting to order for November 5th, 2018. Ms. Deb, let it be known that Mr. Turner, Ms. Castle, and Mr. Johnson, no, Mr. Johnson's working, absent.
Ms. Castle's out of town.
Ms. Castle's out of town. All right, we're gonna, Mr. Clue, would you give the invocation followed by the pledge?
Sure will.
Please stand. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we ask that as we move into the winter months, that everyone look to their left, to their right. Look in your neighborhood, to the elderly, the folks that are without. Lord, help them all. We ask that everyone please reach out. Lord, we thank you for carrying us thus far through this hurricane season unscathed. We ask that you carry us completely. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. And we have a special note. We ask that you look to all the veterans, give them the strength to carry on, and we thank them for all they've done. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with the secretary. Move on to number 4, the acceptance of minutes for the October 8th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Mr. Todd, second by Mr. Johnny. There's no chairman report. Number 6, the drainage report, Mr. Turo.
Thank you. We have, with HNTB, we have a levy certification contract, and as per the October 8th drainage meeting, they're under contract through January 31st for help with the Lomer process. The proposed FEMA panels are under FEMA review, but they're expected to be available to the public later this month. It requires ordinance revisions that will need to be adopted by all governments, meaning City of Gonzales, Town of Sorrento, and the Parish of Ascension. That ordinance adoption would be required around May of next year. And, you know, we've had meetings, but we'll continuously review that process and that ordinance and what changes are involved with that ordinance. The Lomer process is expected to be over and ready for adoption by FEMA in May of next year. We've had a meeting at the parish with Sorrento, Gonzales, and parish officials. HNTB was also at that meeting to discuss the Lomer maps and ordinance revisions that are required, and several council people were there at that meeting. Also, Jerome Fournier and I met with Sorrento parish officials this past week. Actually, it was last week, to discuss the same, the proposed panels that are affected and the ordinance and those revisions. Task order number 10 with HNTB is to evaluate potential projects for flooding, you know, to try to get projects together for whatever money is available from the feds. We're going to have a meeting next week. Tomorrow with the Corps. They also have funding available, not a substantial amount, but we're going to try to coordinate the money that the Corps has available for them to actually do work towards some kind of flood mitigation project, along with, whatever federal money we can get, and also to direct HNTB's contract to marry the two together to get the most bang for our buck. H. Davis Cole is still working on the New River dredging project. The processing fee required by the railroad company has been paid. It's a $1,000 requirement of a processing fee for them to look at anything. So that's been processed. They've also, meaning H. Davis Cole, has begun notifying landowners adjacent to New River in the project limits of the upcoming project. The parish has also been working towards decreasing the cost of the project, and ways that we've done that is to change the slopes. The initial submittal by H. Davis Cole had 6-to-1 slopes. We've changed that to 4-to-1 slopes, and it's decreased the amount of material that will be taken out of New River, so that should cut costs. We've also gotten some preliminary but not final geotechnical reports from the material that is due to be taken out of New River, and the initial reports is that it's not hazardous material. So that's another thing that will decrease the cost, because whenever they put the plans together and put the cost together, which was, certainly substantial, they took the worst case into account. So that included added material with the 6-to-1 slopes, and the possibility that that material would be contaminated and would need to be brought to a special landfill. And also, we're exploring, and I think we're going to have success in bringing the material to a site reasonably close to the project. Another thing that H. Davis Cole had put into their cost was the trucking of the material to, I think they said, like somewhere in Baton Rouge. The distance was about that far. We think we're going to be able to have that material at least temporarily held in the parish, possibly in Gonzales. So we're talking to the town of Gonzales, the school board, and parish property to see if we can use that for either temporary storage of that wet material that'll come out of New River. Lamar Dixon has mentioned that they would, if the material is reasonably decent material that can be dried, it may be able to be permanently stored over there, and it'll be to their benefit. They're really wanting some extra fill. So we're working towards getting that construction cost down. We have I'd call them 95% plans for a drainage improvement project. We hope to have bid in the next few weeks. That will change driveway pipes and clean ditches on several streets in the parish under one contract. That includes Penny Street, Shealy Drive, Salboy Road, and Riverside Estates Drive. There will be a mandatory pre-bid meeting for that project. And it will address over 15,000 linear feet of ditches.
later. Later on. Okay.
Get into the operations report. In the month of October, the Drainage Department's completed 36 drainage maintenance requests. Some of the highlighted projects that are ongoing is the Aikens lateral ditch, which is off of Muddy Creek. That's from Highway 930 area back around to West Lane. That whole big lateral, now that they've improved Muddy Creek, is going to be cleaned back out to the depth it needs to be. We're also, the major channel crews are on Bird Island Ditch. They'll be cleaning out the Bird Island Ditch back towards Roddy Road and all the way up to Apoye Road. But one of the biggest things they see there is the box culverts under Roddy. Have a lot of silt in there. We need to get that cleaned out. So that channel will be worked first, and then they're going to work a plan to clean out the culverts under Roddy. Special projects crews are wrapping up Swamp Road. They've done a joint project with the road division, safety project, and drainage improvement there. They're about 85% complete with that. We are working with the state as well on Highway 42 project. There's a lot of drainage needs there with the outfalls and points of 42. You have Highway 44 at Misty Oak Court, and 42, that outfall there is being dug. Manshack Acres Road ditches were needed to be improved, take some of that water off 42, and several other areas in that vicinity that we're working on to improve the drainage work with the state. Another project, excuse me, that the state has done is Highway 431 in the curve. We know that's been a pretty congested area for a while, but now that the drainage along the state's done, it's shown some weakness on the outfall side, going from 431 in the curve to Fontenot Road. We're looking at taking the existing pipes out of the Fuller property. They're double 24s, and the state's routed double 48s. So we're going to take those 24s out and replace them with the double 48s to match what the state's done. We're working with the property owners. They're all in agreement, signed servitude, and giving us permission to move forward with that. So that'll help that whole little block there out. So that'll be happening shortly. Bateman Ditch, I believe we finally reached an agreement with the Bertholots there, and we hope to move forward with that in the near future. LeBlanc Road has been a drainage complaint for a while. It's right west of Roddy Road by the St. Mark Church. We're trying to resolve a couple of right-of-way issues there. I'll get into it later with the ditch maintenance contract, but a lot of that work that's taking place was done to where some of the existing work orders that drain to Roddy Road and drain into Shadow Creek and Bird Island Ditch are all planned that way to where we can tie them all in. So that'll be coming up. Road crews are in Lake Park subdivision right now, working road ditches on Kurt Cundler Road, off-road and road ditches. Down in Darrow and Ascension Trace, they're doing some off-road work. And Joey had mentioned that I do want to state that bid that's going out as part of the subdivision rehab program. That bid will come from that funding of the construction of the improvements for the subdivision roads. And we'll get into the roadside ditch maintenance report. I know it's an item later on. We'll get to that, but I kind of wanted to go over some of the results of that so far. And if you don't mind, John. We'll turn on the, this is from our cartograph layer of our maps. And this shows the work orders for roadside ditch maintenance in the parish. And before this roadside program came on, we had kind of already started trying to tackle the biggest parts of the parish that had the most work orders. You kind of could see that on the west side here. They've already gotten the southwest area down some, and our crews are currently focusing on Prairieville, and they've made a significant impact already. So what we've done was started the contractors off in the southeast area, and the dark shaded work orders are the ones that have been completed. We'll get into the specifics in a bit, but you can see the dark areas is what they did on their first task, And what we have planned for them now are the lighter shade blues here. And you kind of can see as it progresses, what we're planning to do with the contractor is comb an area and cover across a map section to where we work strategically across in a grid-like fashion to where we can cover these areas. So with the first task orders that we have, we were able to have one crew with the budget that we had. And so we would like to move into having a second crew to put in this section up here where he done the Roddy Road area. And we would like to branch off that with the second crew and start gridding that section. And it would be great to be able to get to a point where we get these work orders up and we're doing things proactive rather than reactive to work orders. That's what we would like to shoot for long term on this. So you get into some of the things of what we've achieved. I just grabbed a couple quick pictures, but some of this subdivision work is, you can see the ditches are, a lot of them are to the top of the culverts in areas. And we had a lot of complaints from this subdivision. Catherine Dale subdivision is a really old subdivision. And in heavy rain events, they were having flash flooding and almost getting into these homes. So that problem is now resolved, and you can see the ditches are now at the bottom of the driveway culverts. And Roddy Road near Shadow Creek and Bird Allen Ditch has all been improved to the bottom of the culverts in that area. So you get into the financials of the roadside contract. Go over this. Zoom in on that a little bit. So the original contract was for $250,000 and a rate of $7 a foot. So the first two streets that you see were that subdivision of Catherine Dale subdivision, and they were there for 3 days, and you can see the total footage that was dug and the price for each road that was completed. And there were 2 or 3 work orders on each of these streets, and were able to complete all of those in doing this. When you get into Preston Landry and Roddy, Roddy Road was a significantly long section of work orders. We had work orders all throughout Roddy in some areas, so we tasked them to do that section from Highway 931 all the way down to Black Bayou Road. So the first invoice that we received was $70,889. That was to the date of October the 16th. And then you get into the second page of this was the amount that we have not been invoiced for yet, but we do have the amounts of what the work was done, the dates that were there and the amount of footage that the contractor dug and the roads that they did. And you get down to the total footage that was dug on this was 20,374 feet to date. And that is $146,618 that we're at right now on their contract. If you look at the last figure of 103,382, that's the remaining balance of the contract. We tasked the contractor last week with those light shaded blue areas that you saw on the map. That's their next group of work orders. And this money should cover that. But once they're done with that, they're going to be just about out of their contract. So we're asking at a later item to look at possibly renewing that with some more funding to keep this thing going and get this program to the next steps. But
Excuse me.
that pretty much.
Ron, do you have an extra copy for everyone they could, so they can look at that?
Sure. You talking about the budget?
Just get Joy to hand them out if you don't mind, so they can have it for record.
I should have given enough for. That's fine.
Thank you. I got it, but it won't let me open.
Mr. Chairman, while Joey's doing that, could I ask Ron a question?
Sure.
Ron, just a heads up, tomorrow we have a big election that we have a critical renewal tax on the ballot. And without that renewal, could you maybe explain a little bit to the citizens what would be affected by not renewing that 5 mil property tax that's been there for quite a few years?
Yes, sir. I really feel like you're going to see a decline in services in areas, especially programs like this. I'm not sure that we would be able to sustain the budget if we took that. We want to think positive. We think the parish really needs this moving forward, and I will say that we are proud of what we do. We are there every time an event happens to serve the public, not only these ditch maintenance deals, but the prime reason we're here is flood control and structure flooding and running these pumping stations and running emergency response. So we will have to keep that up, no doubt. We're going to be there for the citizens of the parish, but we would hope that we don't have to face that. But if we do, we're going to have to significantly look at our budget and the services that we're currently providing. We do a lot of things for the state, do a lot of things for the public, setting culverts, things like that, that we may have to look at and reevaluate.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We hope for the best on that, and we'll go from there.
And I'm not one for new taxes. You know, you look at my history as far as voting, but this renewal is very important to us, and I'm here to tell the citizens that without it, we're gonna have some drainage issues down the road. You know, because we can do it only what we can. You know, if we fail this
Absolutely.
tax.
It's very important to realize the maintenance that we do in vegetation mainly. You know, you don't see them every day. You don't see them out there like you mow your lawn. But once or twice a year makes a big difference on a right-of-way
You better know it.
and a channel. And if you go 1 year or two without maintenance in that channel, you start getting saplings and it gets away from you.
Quick.
And no doubt, I'm not saying that we don't have some of that, but, you know, we do a lot of maintenance in the parish.
Yes, you do. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. You have anything else on the drainage report?
That concludes it.
Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Bill.
So I guess most of that I have is for Joey. I echo the comments that Councilman Todd Lambert had. I think that, you know, and the distinction there, I think, is that 5 mil taxes for maintenance really of our systems, which includes the Marvin Bro pumps and all these ditches that we're doing currently. Is that correct, Ron?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the, Joe, you talked about this task order number 10, and this is the potential projects. These are the things that we asked, I think, at the last drainage meeting where we asked you to look into 3 different projects for this $1.2 billion. So what I'm curious about is, you said there's some money available from the Corps. How much is available from the Corps for flood control or flood mitigation?
We're going to learn more tomorrow whenever we meet, but they did send a document spelling out the criteria of the money that they are getting. It's about $5 million, I think, is what it is.
What's available? $5 million.
Yeah, and it's strictly Corps money.
And that, what is that $5 million to be spread across the state or what?
It's kind of wide open. It could be construction, it could be design, it could be a study. So we're going to meet with them and try to see what's the best way to spend that money.
So we had these potential projects. We have a fairly short fuse on the schedule on that, and I'm wondering where we are with that evaluation.
I mean, we're going to be meeting with HNTB shortly. They're putting information together now, and we'll meet with them tomorrow, and we'll get a direction from there on where they are and get a game plan along with the Corps.
Mm-hmm. So at this time, we don't know where we are on percent complete or anything else as far as the evaluation of these projects.
No, they're just getting ready to where they can make a presentation to us.
So just my 2 cents there. If we're chasing $5 million, we got to be careful that we don't have a dollar chasing a dime or a dime chasing a dollar. So
no,
we're
it's
looking
just
at
convenient that we have.
We're looking at $1.2 billion in these federal monies, and if we're looking at maybe 5, I would hate to see us lose our attention on this $1.2 billion, or trying to get $5 million. On the New River project, So it's my appreciation that, you know, we have construction costs. We were given a construction cost estimate that ranged from about $1 million to $5 million. Is that correct?
The construction cost is, no, it's between 5 and 6, you know, if you go by worst case scenario.
I think we talked about this the last time, and I'm
Correct.
not sure where we, you know, when that came to this body, that this body approved that, the $5 million for construction. Last I remember, and I thought we talked about this, was
It was in the
that
May meeting.
there were like 3 different scenarios, and we approved the engineering to go forward, and we said we'd come back after the, you know, certain amount of the engineering was done and the construction was better defined, then we would make a decision about whether we would do these aesthetical changes or not, or just remove the weir.
But we still, you know, we can let it different ways. That's still open for debate as to how it's to be led, if it's going to be in small pieces or if it's going to be all together. That's still, you know, up for debate.
I'll leave this to my colleagues, but, you know, it's my appreciation that we haven't approved the $5-point-something million of construction costs on the replacement of that weir. Does anybody?
I think Joey's alluding to the fact that in May, we had a vote within us.
Yeah.
And Ron, you might, I
There
think that was discussed the last time.
Yes, sir. There
Not
was,
that I'm in favor of it or against it, I'm just saying, I think we'd clarified. that
right. There were
there
2
was a-
items in May. One was to fully fund the project, and the second was to amend the contract of the architect and engineering firm to design.
And I think that's where Bill's point is at, is that, for us, you know, whether we're funding the engineering to come back to us or whether, you know, and you know, with a full package, or whether were we funding the project, construction, you know.
Right. Well, it was mentioned the whole budget in that item was $6 million for if you do the entire scope of the project. But the engineering-wise is right. It is in phases that the engineers that are designing this will come back to you guys at that point and make a recommendation on the phasing of the project. Do you want to do one, all of them? What's the best scenario at that point?
So I guess from my viewpoint, I don't feel like that I've sat in on a meeting that approved, you know, going through this $5 to $6 million worth of construction. You know, like I said, I think that we approved the engineering to be done, and then I'm beginning to, you know, if we don't have a decision on how much construction we're going to do, then, you know, I think we should do that without much delay, because I'd hate to see us spend more money on the engineering that we may not do that construction.
Councilman, if I may, the plan was to get the engineering done so that we understood the project. And then once we understand the project sufficiently, then we're going to come back to the full Drainage Board Committee with a recommendation on how to do it, how much it's going to cost, what sections we're going to do, and then let the committee vote as they see.
So is that correct, that we'll have some choices there about alternatives in that, or how many phases of this work that we do?
Right, we want to bring you back phases, choices, possibly different methods of construction. There's some question as to what we can do with the dirt and how much that would cost to move around, et cetera, et cetera. But we plan to come back with a full menu of ideas for y'all to consider.
Okay, so that's what I understood. Thank you, William.
Mr. Chairman.
So on, and I just had one question about the ditches, and I really do appreciate all that work that you guys are doing in the ditches. And does that include disposal? I'm wondering, that's $7 a foot. Does that include disposal of
Yes,
the
sir.
material? Okay, thanks.
does.
That sounds reasonable then.
It is. It's a whole lot of less footwork that we have to worry about.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ron, and thank you, Joey. Probably keeping score at home this evening, I'd like to do what Bill usually does, crunch a few numbers here on the drainage report, Ron, if you don't mind, and correct me where I go astray, please. So your report is that we have cleared 20,374 feet total of ditches, and at $7 a foot, 20,000 plus K of footage is about 4 miles of ditch, not quite. At $7 a foot, you're telling us it cost us $146,618, and round off to $150,000. This EA board commission has authorized $250, so we have $100K to go in those blue areas and all that you talked about. Just kind of fuzzy math. Forgive me, Al Gore. Another 2/3 of 4 miles would be about another 2-point-something miles, a little bit more than that. So we're going to get about 6 miles bang for our buck, so to speak, for the original $250,000 allocation. And tonight on our agenda, as you also alluded to, and correctly so, I think, you're going to be requesting another, to continue on the map you showed some of these other areas, $750,000, bringing the total to a total of, in this cleaning effort, to $1 million, considering the original $250K.
That's incorrect. So it's 250 original, and we're asking to raise it for 500. Which would be
Okay,
a total
thanks
of
for the correction.
750.
So it'd be $750,000. All right. And so with the other $750K, though, nonetheless, using the amount of footage you've been able to clear, it sounds to me like that's going to be at least another 24 miles. Add that to the, 18 plus miles. Add that to the original 6 for the work already done and soon to be done with the original budget allocation. That's about 24 miles of road. But the people can understand it, and thanks for the correction, for $750,000, we're getting about 24 to 25 miles of road ditches cleaned out. Now, the question is, how many miles after that will we have to go? Because I'm certain that won't do it, and you'll be coming back cap in hand, rightfully so, because we learned from Mr. Rue before his retirement that we had a list that was 2 years old or whatever the number was of ditch work orders and so forth. So do you have, at this time, Ron or Joey, any idea about how many total miles of ditches we're going to need to do before that whole list is exhausted, we're caught up, our constituents are happy? And this is important because of what Councilman Lambert asked about the upcoming tax, which after tomorrow we're going to know one way or another about.
Yes, sir. I can go into our GIS layer and get with technology and task them to look into that with the pending work orders that are on the books and find that number out. I do not have it tonight.
Do you have a gut impression?
No, I'm not going to put that out there.
Okay. All right. And on a more specific thing, let me start with thanking, I don't know all of the workings that you and Mr. Turo had on it, but I did meet with Devin Duplessis and Mike Enlow a few weeks ago on the Swamp Road safety fix, and it's being sold, and I think correctly so, as both a drainage and a traffic fix, because I want the people to understand that drive that, and they complain to me all the time. What the parish is doing is putting in from basically the back of the parking lot there on the airline highway of O'Reilly Auto Parts, I believe it is, 600 feet going toward Webb Road on one side where the road's really, really bad. And I've been told over and over by Mr. Enlow and by Davin and others that it erodes because you can't just keep putting road bed down on the sides of this road. It's just going to keep sloughing off in the ditch because there's nothing to support it. So by putting these culverts in, I want the public to understand this, it supports the road bed in addition to helping on the drainage. So these things are kind of inextricably tied. My question is, you said it's 85% complete. I apologize, I haven't been over there to see it lately, but so I'm going to assume 85% of the 600 feet from, maybe I didn't finish my sentence, from O'Reilly's parking lot to maybe Webb Road or very close to that, is done. So, and that's all being done with reinforced concrete pipe culverts. I saw the work order, something like 60 of them of various lengths, and then 4 clean-out basins.
Yes, sir. I talked to them earlier today. They are moving on the project and progressing well. They have to haul in some dirt to now cover the pipe and dress it up.
So this is a good example of barrels up, barrels down.
Yes, sir. We have worked with the transportation department on issues like this. If they have a area that is repetitive accidents on record and also a drainage problem.
Well, I didn't put that in the record, but since you did, that was my main concern. We had a really bad accident there and people were seriously injured, so hats off to the parish for addressing that. There are a few other areas on Swamp Road that I will be talking to you guys about. One of which is, you might want to go out and take a look at it at your earliest convenience, right at Rayborn's Village on Swamp Road. I get the streets confused. To me, it's all swamp, but there's, as we all know, there's East Swamp, West Swamp, North Swamp, South Swamp. Swamp, without a geographical designation on it, but you know where the railroad tracks are. And what bothers me there is it's not only very narrow and dangerous from the traffic standpoint, like it was, and no longer going to be with this safety fix that y'all doing, close to Airline Highway, but you can see the big white oars on the road standing for railroad, and pieces of them chunking off and falling into the ditch. And boy, it really is an accident looking to happen. And once again, as Mr. Lambert pointed out, hopefully we're going to have the monies to do this, but if we don't, we don't. And I'd like to see the whole thing widened, but I realize that gets into right-of-way acquisition. It gets into all kinds of issues, and the numbers that Mike pushed around with me, maybe as much as, I've heard as low as 10 and as high as $20 million.
Yes, sir.
And that's if you can get the people to give up their property and their oak trees and things of this nature, because it's really a beautiful road. But again, thank you guys for that. Really appreciate how fast you did it, and the fact that you did what you said you were going to do. Always very important to me. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you,
hats off to
Mr.
the
Chairman.
employees that did that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Satterley, could I address one of the questions you asked?
Certainly, sir. Please.
So if we do the whole $750,000 worth of digging, that would equate to a little over 20 miles, 20.3 miles.
Wasn't too far off.
Now, that's not, but that's not entirely accurate, because we replaced some culverts when we're replacing some of the ditches so that it drains properly. It wouldn't do any good to dig out the ditches and leave.
So the figure's only for the 7 foot, so that people understand it, that you dig, but we're putting more money in when we put RCP in the ground.
Yes, sir. So, so we have, I mean, if you talk about everything that the Drainage Department maintains, it's somewhere over 2,000 miles. Now, but if you break that down,
You want to, Mr. Dan, you want to say that word again? How many miles?
2,000 miles
miles,
of
yes.
maintenance that our Drainage Department does every year. Now, not all of it is some of it is grass along the state roads, but then we have the local parish roads, the ditches on either side, and then we have major waterways as well. There's, I think, 879 miles of parish roads. Is that right? About 879?
I think that's the total miles when you added both ditches on both sides.
Okay, so there's about 879 miles of ditches that we maintain. So while this is a small amount, Ron has prioritized the digging so that we are improving the drainage. First we're prioritizing it from a safety standpoint, and then we're prioritizing it from how many
Gotcha.
people we can help with the most. So he's got a really good plan, and this has gone very well, and it was, Ron has done really well in getting this contract, not only, to the council for consideration and y'all's approval, but then also overseeing the contract, and things are working very well.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate, I'm very appreciative on Swamp Road, fellas. Good job. Thank you a lot.
Mr. Darren.
A couple questions, real quick. Muddy Creek, the riprapping on that, is that completed?
Just fixing to present that.
Oh, okay, we're not there yet. Well, I can wait, I can be patient. I had another question. Just because I've been looking into this on different reasons, mainly for drainage ponds, but changing the slope of the New River Canal, I mean, what effect is that going to have on erosion long-term?
It's still, that 4-to-1, we feel is still going to be to where we can maintain it. It's steeper than that now. There's no way you can put a tractor on the slopes to do that work. So we didn't want to go any steeper than 4-to-1, but 4-to-1 is acceptable. A lot of our roads have 4-to-1 slopes, so it is something that we're going to be able to maintain, and it's a normal slope for a roadway along with a channel.
Okay, my concern is only that we'll have erosion problems later on, but y'all the engineers, and If y'all are good with it, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
'Cause y'all know better.
Should be okay. I mean, the study also includes the geotech, the type soil that's there, and it's going to be hydroseeded once it's all done. We're going to try to get the grass growing as quick as possible.
Okay, great. One of the other, we're talking about drainage ditches and all that. We have a lot of sewage swales, sewage plants that we do. Do we maintain that also? And is that part of that 879 miles or?
Sewage line.
Sure. I mean, it's all in the same ditch,
Okay.
so that just makes the job tougher.
Yeah.
Because it's fertilized.
It's for.
So Councilman, the contract that we use for digging, we normally confine that to long stretches of straight roads. When we work on the swell ditches, we do that with our own crews. I think we have 4 crews that do road work. We have 8 crews that do the major drainage canals, and we have 2 crews that do the swell ditches. And those are much more complicated. We have right-of-way issues. We're obviously working with people in the backyard. So we have to be very careful about how we conduct ourselves while we're out there working. I think there's a total of 78 employees that are involved in all these drainage activities. So there's a lot of ditches to maintain. That 5 mil tax renewal, that helps us maintain them. And we work very hard on the maintenance of all the ditches to make sure that everything flows.
No, thank you. And that 5 mils extremely important because just from my own standpoint, my novice standpoint, we're not maintaining these ditches. It takes less of a rainfall to create a problem, and that's really the last thing we need. The 5 mils goes towards maintaining this. I want everybody to realize that out in the public, this is extremely important. And y'all are, we're spending the money wisely now, getting some of these ditches cleaned out and letting the water flow and get out of there quicker. So it doesn't get up to your carport and to your house. Keep up the good work.
We also have a crew, Councilman, that is going along the waterways, spraying for weeds and killing the weeds, which also helps tremendously as well.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Mr. Cluett.
Yeah, once again, everybody, thank you very much. I really appreciate, hearing that you got the Bateman ditch, got that worked out to go past 935. And for all the people in the Buxton subdivision, Riverside, Savoy Road, and all far back behind New River Baptist Church and People Lane, all throughout there, that this Buxton ditch and this other work that you got coming on Savoy Road and Riverside and everything is going to really try to get some of the flash flooding water out of there. And they've been crippled pretty good. So even though during the floods we've done a good job of putting tractors back there and the pumps and everything, we've done as good as we could, other than 2016 flood. Earlier, Joey mentioned the parish ditches, and you talked about looking at going out the bid on Penny Street, Savoy, Riverside, and Shealy, and then you mentioned. So when do we expect that to get?
I recap what Joey was saying, that it was part of that subdivision.
Right.
All of those roads are parts of subdivisions.
Mhm.
Shealy is a subdivision in itself.
Right.
Riverside Estates is one, and Penny is in Bayou
Right.
Estates.
Mhm.
So all of this is going to be part of that subdivision rehab program for the
Right.
older subdivisions in the parish. And I just wanted to make that note, that's all.
And I just want to go ahead, I brought it up earlier, and I think William had brought it up even, about the culverts, is that we've got a host of culverts out there that are either on wrong elevation or undersized. And that's part of the work of doing a total rehab
That's
of a
right.
road ditch going to a major drainage connection.
Yes.
And also about the sewer, sewage ditches, we call them in Santa Monica, that there's been some studies that if you could take the sewer out of the ditch, that you get a 5 times more life out of the ditch without silting in. That's the bottom line. We've got a lot of local ditches.
I would say much more than that. And you also get relief on vegetation.
when you get relief on vegetation, I didn't count that in, but, we got silting in on ditches that is as little as 2 years. It's silted in. And depending on what kind of sewer treatment plants that people have, if you got an area with a bunch of old plants that are basically pushing, some heavy waste out rather than the good treatments. And you take a straight out water ditch and it just stays there, And so that's one thing we can look to the future in some of the sewer improvements and getting that out of the ditches, getting it in a pipe and get it going to the river. But I'd like to just continue on moving this road plan. It seems like it's working out good. I ran all the numbers that you gave. Look like you're hitting that $7, Keep it moving. We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Mr. Todd.
I'm good for right now.
Mr. Johnson.
Just want to reiterate the fellow council members talking about the renewal vote, which comes up tomorrow. A lot of progress has been made. The flood of 2016 just knocked us back, knocked us down. And I think that we've shown a lot of progress and that you guys have done an excellent job. One program that's been mentioned multiple times is the replacement of culverts that were grandfathered in, have been in for years, 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch culverts. Those are being replaced. If there are a drainage issue, we're going to take care of that to make sure the drainage happens the way it should. So I just want to compliment you all on a job well done and continue to do it. We'll support you when we can. Thank you.
That's it. Just end on this, with the, approval, y'all met with the contractor. He will be able to put on another crew fairly quick,
Yes, he's asking that, we've already asked him for another crew for the 250, but he wouldn't do it.
Right.
He said, I've got to have my balance there to fund this. I can't go out and rent machines and the whole nine to do it and not have funding there to secure
Okay.
it. So he's good with the funding we have now for the crew, with the task order we've issued for another month, but after that, he'll be idle.
No, we good. We got it on there. I just want to make sure that we won't have any hiccups along the way.
Yep.
And, Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, and just another question for the public that's keeping score out there. The $7 per foot, I believe we covered this, I want to be sure. By using a contractor, we can't do it in-house cheaper. I mean, we're getting maximum bang for the buck, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's very comparable to what we do. It's not that far off.
Well, and let's face
It
this.
is a little more, but it's,
Let's go ahead and face this, Doc. I'll explain it to you. He's digging around a lot of utilities. He's digging, this guy has to have insurance.
Yep. If he gets something, I understand that.
So I just want to make sure we.
That was all implied in my question, but
Yeah.
so.
I will say this, that one thing we gained out of this is a tool. All right?
Right.
We're a complaint-driven company. We dig a ditch here, the next one on the list, it might be 10 miles down the road. So you take this work order, you go to the next one, you pass up 4 or 5 problems that you probably need to fix on the side of the road, going to the next one.
Right.
So,
And while we're on the subject, Ron, when they're complete, obviously the parish is going out to inspect, right?
Yes.
What we're seeing, we're happy, it's the correct
They're on
depth.
grade.
They're going to say it's the correct width, it's in line with the culvert, and
Right.
da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yep, and the goal of this is to use them as a tool to be able to not jump the list and go to the next person on the list, but utilize this group of work to sweep a grid area and try to knock these work orders out.
Right.
And I really feel personally that in a long-term investment in this, you may not need a budget but so much a year for this, if we catch up and get these work orders caught up, and then we can start doing some proactive work. That's what we would like to get to.
Good job, man. Appreciate it. If that's all on the drainage report, we'll move on to number 7, approval of, Joey, I'm sorry, did you have anything else?
Councilman Lawler had mentioned Muddy Creek. I do have a map, if John would bring that up, that has
I'm losing my
Muddy Creek on it, and it shows what we have left to do there is armoring of the, if you can see that real well, but that yellow part is all in the curves of Muddy Creek. What we have left to do is to provide armoring, which is just riprap in all of the turn points. And the work that has been done already is the dredging of the majority
Right.
of Muddy Creek. So what we have left to do is the armoring. what is allowed in that grant is for the work that the parish, because the parish is doing this work themselves in-house. That work, labor and equipment can go towards the match. So the entire grant is for $852,858. The Fed part is $639,643. The parish's match is $213,215. But like I said, the work that they've done before, we're going to capture that in labor and equipment, and then what we have left to do, we're going to capture that also. That's going to be labor, equipment, and material, because we'll be buying riprap material to place. So all of that will go towards the match. So that's, that's how the grant works, and we're going to, capture as much of our labor. We think we can eat into a big portion of that match. If not, we're hoping all of it.
Okay, great. Sorry to jump the gun.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. We're ready for it.
Anything else, Joe?
That's it.
Anything else, Ron? Appreciate the good report. We'll move on to number 7, approval of change order number 1. Joy?
This is change order number 1. It's a contract with River Road Construction in the contract of the Bird Allen Ditch, construction of 4 timber bridges. Change orders to provide a deduction in the amount of $1,500.
Motion by Mr. Todd, second by Mr. Johnny.
We like deductions, Joe.
Right, right.
Any opposition to this motion? Discussion, Mr. Cloy.
Real quick, Joe, we didn't buy nothing down, huh? We not.
No, the reason for it is that we just, there was some work that we were gonna have to wait a while for them to do. We thought it was fair to just, let them finish finish what they had done and leave, as opposed to having to come back, a
Good deal.
month later to do
Thanks.
some work.
All right.
And it's stuff we can easily do ourselves.
No opposition to the motion. Motion passed. Number 8, approval.
Approval of a certificate for substantial completion of the Bird Allen Ditch 4 timber bridges project. All work provided by the contract and the change order are complete and suitable for acceptance by the
Motion.
parish.
Moved by Mr. Dan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Todd. Discussion. Any opposition? Not. Motion passed. All right, number 9, approval to amend master contract. Mr. Ron?
Approval to amend the master contract for professional services of roadside ditch maintenance between On Grade Construction and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1, adding an additional $500,000.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Mr. Johnny. Discussion. Any opposition to the motion? Not. Motion passed. Right, number 10, approval of certificate of substantial completion. Joe?
This is approval of a certificate of substantial completion for the access platform to the Marvin Bro Pump Station. All work provided by the contract is complete and suitable for
Motion.
acceptance by the parish.
Moved by Mr. Randy, second by Mr. Todd. Any discussion on this? Any opposition? Not. Motion passed.
Motion
Number 11, moved by Mr. Todd, second by Mr. Johnny. We are adjourned.
Try and get transportation